It's the weekend, and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome. I know you're probably on your long weekend, but maybe you're listening to this broadcast while you're going somewhere. Maybe you're on your way to the beach. Maybe you're on your way to the mountains. Maybe, unfortunately, you have to work. I don't know. Some people work on the weekends. Actually, a lot of people do. But if you're scurrying about, we are so delighted that you are tuning in. It is Jill on Money. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. And here we are, summer doldrums. Not doldrums. It's exciting. I feel like we had a pretty wet, nasty spring in the Northeast, at least. So anyway, hopefully you're enjoying some time off, and we are very happy that you are with us. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank Studios here in New York. And we are very fortunate because we have tons of people who've been asking us questions, writing in, trying to get on the air with us. And we're kind of catching up a bit because we sort of had a month here where Mark had to have a baby. Well, Mark didn't have a baby. His beloved had a baby. But he helped. He was there the whole way. But I peppered him throughout the whole process. What a pain in the neck. What a pain in the neck, Auntie Jill. It'll be worth it. Trust me. Anyway, if you've got a financial question, if you have, maybe you have a question about the overall economy now that we have become the longest expansion on record. Maybe you have a question about your investments, your retirement plan. I don't know. You probably have questions. All you have to do is send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Or you can go to the website. The website is conveniently called jillonmoney.com. And there you can just click on the Contact Us button. All right, let's start the program with a caller. It's Gabriel, who's on the line from Washington, D.C. Hello, Gabriel. Welcome to the program. What can we do for you?
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
So I am turning 30 this year, and I'm switching careers after teaching for 7 years, and I'm starting law school in the fall.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been married within the past year, and I am planning to start a family in about another year.
Okay.
And I know I should be getting life insurance.
You sure? Wait a second. Let's go back for a second.
Sure.
You know you should be getting life insurance because why? Because if something were to happen to you, your wife wouldn't be able to pay the bills? Or, tell me the situation. Is she working?
She's working. She's also a teacher. Actually, in D.C., we get paid pretty well, especially if you're high performing. So she makes about $120,000 a year.
Awesome.
And so, I mean, my question is really, I know we're going to start a family. I'm taking on some debt, and I don't want to leave her in a lurch if something happens.
Okay, makes sense. That makes sense to me. So talk to me about law school. When you say taking on some debt, how much are you taking on?
Yeah, so over the 3 years, it's going to be about $175,000 in loans.
Poor Mark is cringing. I wish I could have a picture of you. You know, like Edward Munch, the Scream? That's what Mark's face looks like right now. He's worried for you.
Well, I've got good news for Mark.
Okay.
And if everything works out, I plan to be a public service lawyer. And as long as the public service loan forgiveness plan works, the law school I'm at is going to help pay my loan payments each month, that after 10 years, most of that debt should just be forgiven. So that's the goal and the hope.
Right.
But obviously, we've got to see how that
All right,
out.
but that makes sense to me. All right, so right now, through your wife's employment in the school system, is she entitled or have a certain baseline of coverage for herself in terms of life insurance?
She does. She has something like salary plus something.
Okay. And she does not purchase anything beyond that. In other words,
No.
She doesn't. There, some employers say, if you would like to, you can buy 5 times your salary, but she doesn't do that.
We don't have that, and honestly, even though I had the same options, it's not something that I purchased up to this point because I didn't have any dependents or necessary beneficiaries.
Yep.
So I think there are potentially some higher options than what she currently has, but I'm not sure what those are.
All right. So I think getting some insurance right now makes a ton of sense for you. You probably will end up getting a better deal because you're young and you're healthy. And if you're both young and healthy, there's kind of no reason not to do it right now. Mark, what was the name of that insurance company? Oh, yeah. So, Mark, we had a guest on the podcast a while back, and Mark kind of fell in love with the guy. It's so pretty to see that in person. It really is nice. Anyway, Mark bought a $1 million term life insurance policy. Was it a 20-year? 30-year. So Mark got a 30-year term life insurance policy, and you can get up to $1 million, and it's totally easy to do. So the name of the company is Haven Life. You may have a couple of other choices, and I would get the $1 million just because, you know what? You're going to need it. You're going to be making real money. You're going to have needs. Like you said, you're going to have kids. So if you get $1 million today, even if that's slightly more than you need, you'll be happy and it's cheap. You might as well do it. So what I would do is I would do two things. I would go check that out. You can also see through your wife. Sometimes unions have separate deals with insurance companies, although, they're not always the best deal. Don't let anyone sell you anything more than a 30-year term life insurance policy. If you each bought $1 million of coverage right now and you have a few kids and you got some debt and you buy a house, all those things, you'd be pretty much covered. So I would get it now. I wouldn't wait because, frankly, it's cheap. And, unfortunately, bad things can happen at any time, even though it's highly unlikely that you will ever need this policy. So that's easy to do. And certainly when the transaction is kind of a frictionless one, it's one that I'm always happy to do, even if I throw away a couple of years worth of, I could have gotten this great benefit at work 3 years from now. Who knows where you're going to be? Just have your own. It's easy. It's yours.
Cool.
Make sense?
Cool. Yeah.
Good.
I do have a very quick follow-up question if you still have time.
Of course.
My father-in-law is a big believer in umbrella insurance,
Yes.
And
did a worker fall through his roof and sue him? Is that why he's a big believer?
I don't know that he's ever had to use it, but it's one of those things where I'm curious, like, is it something we should get? Is it something that I know you've talked about, around renovation time and your house that you own that makes sense? We're renting. We don't own a house. We're not planning to own a house for several years.
And you have no money. How much money do you guys have saved up? You have mostly in retirement plans, I presume?
We're about 130 in retirement, about 30 in cash.
All right. You don't need an umbrella policy right now. Tell your father-in-law, oh, that's such a great idea. When I get my life insurance, I'll take a look at that. That's all you have to do. When you buy a home, I do like umbrella coverage because of the obvious reason, which is bad things can happen in a house, whether it's your friend or a worker or whatever. The other part of it is that right now, because most of your assets are in retirement accounts, those are protected from litigation. So
I see.
If someone did come into your apartment and a chandelier fell on, your wife's friend, and that guy sued you, you can't go after you can go after your 30 grand. They're not going to go after your 30 grand. So what I would say is, hang on when you get that house and you're ready to take the plunge. Yeah, I think umbrella coverage makes sense.
Perfect.
Okay. Stay tuned. More of your questions coming right up. It's Jill on Money. Hop onto the website, jillonmoney.com, and sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. How's our Twitter account doing, Mark? Pretty good? I don't know. I sort of had to take a little break from social. Mark makes sure that I see everything I need to see, but it isn't like me going there because my feelings get hurt. He is less poisoned by it, takes it less personally than I do. Anyway, this is Jill on Money, the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. And we'd love to hear from you. And the way to get in touch with us is to simply email us, askjill@jillonmoney.com, or perhaps you have our website, jillonmoney.com, saved in your favorites. You should. Click on the Contact Us button and just tell us what's on your mind. We'll try to help you out. That is what we did with Kelly, and she's up next. Kelly from Atlanta. Kelly and her husband have about 125 grand sitting in a savings account. So what's the problem?
He is uncomfortable with how much money is sitting there doing nothing with a 1.25% interest rate.
Wait a minute, 1.25%. It's 1% more than the national average. So you should feel good about yourself. What do you think is your emergency savings needs if 125-ish is too much? What is the actual emergency reserve fund? Where should it be, do you think?
I guess we have about maybe 60,000, and that's even probably more than we need for 6 months of expenses.
Okay. All right.
We spend probably $7,000 a month or $8,000.
All right.
9 on a bad month.
Or a good month. Are you guys both employed, or is it one salary?
Two salaries.
And how much do you guys earn together?
About 203,000.
200. Okay, we'll call it. How old are you guys?
I'm 41 and he's 49.
I like that you had to think about that. Like, not sure. You guys got kids?
Yes.
How many?
3. 2 are grown and 1 is 16.
Oh, okay. 16-year-old college, maybe. Does money have to get allocated for that?
Yeah, we're saving in a 529, and my husband, is divorced, so hopefully mom will save some too. I think that she should be covered.
Okay, great.
As long as she goes to a state school.
Perfect. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about what you guys have done saving and investing wise. Maybe we just add some of that emergency reserve money to what's going on. So what have you guys done? Let's start with retirement funds.
Okay, so my husband in his 401k has $380,000, and that's a target date fund. And he has a pension too, which neither of us are exactly sure how it works. In it is $135,000, but I think he gets a certain amount at a certain age. So I don't know what. But
it's good. It's like nothing bad can happen with that in terms of like, hey, there could be an extra nice stream of income, even if it were just like $1,000 a month. It's something will come in. Okay, so he's got 380, and is he maxing out his retirement account?
Yes, and we do a backdoor Roth for both of us.
Oh, sweet.
So I have $115,000 in mine, and he has $30,000 in his.
Great.
And in my 457 plan, I have $109,000, and then I have a brokerage account with about $643,000 in stocks. And I think that's about it. I have a Lincoln annuity too that was old 403B, and that's $52,000.
Old 403B meaning that it's still a non-qualified annuity, or has it been rolled over?
No, it's still. I mean, I haven't put any money in.
I got it. It's just sitting there dormant, essentially. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it's still there. It's a 403B. Okay, great. So you got a lot of money. This is all good news. So what is it about the savings that it sounds to me like you want to keep it beefed up a little bit more than you need. He doesn't. What is it that you feel like why you want to have that money safe and liquid right now?
I don't really have any, particular reason other than like I've never had a loan on a car. I'm just not comfortable with debt.
Okay.
I had my house paid off when I moved into this house. It's just a discomfort with debt.
Okay.
And, he just wants to, he's feeling like, he gave half of his retirement away. Like, I want to make up time. I want to invest some money. I want to make something happen with this extra money that's just sitting around.
All right. Well, so what you're telling me is that, I'm just going to use round numbers. So of the 125, you need about half of it in emergency reserve. The other half could be moved if you could get comfortable with that. And certainly you could just pop that right into your Schwab account, right? It's a non-qualified, it's a non-retirement account. You could just put it in there and invest. Does he have something different that he is thinking about?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I was saying to him last night, that's an account that's been in my name. So I was thinking we could open a joint account, some kind of brokerage account,
Right.
and, use one of the robo-advisors and do something that's a little bit more conservative than just all stocks.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that might be a good thing. And you're sort of in it together, and you don't, and that way, it may be risky, it may not be. You can sort of think of it as you could think of it as like an in-between kind of account. Like, hey, if something different happened in a few years, like if all of a sudden your 16-year-old goes to a public school and you're covered, that's great. But if all of a sudden she's like, hey, I just got into some great school, and you're like, we do have this money, we could help her pay for it, you would have this money available that you could use it. But again, if it were, if your retirement money is invested most aggressively, and then your non-retirement money is sort of one step down from that risk-wise, this money would be a step down from even that. Just that I think that you should think of this as what I would call intermediate term money. That, we're in our 40s. If in 10 years this is like, gosh, we could have made more money being more aggressive, it won't matter. It won't, because you have enough money now. You got about whatever it is, $1 million. So you're going to be fine. You really are. Can you get comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm worried. It's like, well, you have it invested and you sell and then you pay capital gains. To me, it's like, well, what, I just have not. I don't know what the loss would be then, especially if it's invested in something that's like bonds, which I don't understand at all. I don't know, like, how do you then liquefy that money?
So there's a couple of things that you can do. So right now, tell me, in that Schwab account, you said there was $640-something thousand or 650 grand. What's in there? Stocks or mutual funds? What's in there?
It's mostly individual stocks. There's like 39 individual stocks and then 3 like ETFs that are also
individual stocks. Dude, you're a player.
Well, my dad is an economist, so from a very young age he had picked out stocks for me, and then I just sort of around 28 started asking for tips and advice and so forth, which I know is a little bit, not normal, but I feel pretty good about it looking at the cost basis and the growth and all of that.
Can I label this caller the abnormal investor? I mean, I think that you're perfect. This is great. I mean, look, you've got these stocks. Hopefully it's diversified, but it's all stock, meaning that you don't have any bonds anywhere except in his 401k, he's got a target date fund, so that has some bonds in it. But mostly you guys are all 100% stocks, correct?
Yes.
All right, so here's something to think about. Maybe the interim step for you is that you start to consider trying to add some bonds to your overall allocation. With a bond or a bond fund, you have income that you get from it. If that income is pushing into a retirement account, it's not taxed. Now, tell me, you said you live in Atlanta. Does Georgia have a state income tax?
Yes.
Okay, so if you put bonds in your non-retirement account, then those bonds are going to throw off income unless they are municipal bonds, which is a whole different category. But basically, bond is easy. Think of it this way. You make a loan to someone or some company or some municipality, and they pay you interest. That's a bond. That's all it is. So that's what I would do. I would just add some bond positions to the retirement accounts. And, if you're comfortable with index funds, there are bond indexes that are really cheap, and that's how I would manage it. Okay, we'll be back to the program in just a second. During the break, why don't you subscribe to our sister podcast? It's called Jill on Money. Get it on Apple, Stitcher, Radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. It's summertime. Woo! I love the summer. Actually, Mark hates the summer because he doesn't like hot weather. Remember Bacalar? He used to go crazy. He hates the summer. I guess that if I had to pick a favorite month, I'm sort of feeling like October, generally speaking. First of all, it's the month of crashes, so I love that. Any financial crisis that I've lived through has happened in October. It's a good reminder. No, I was just I like fall. I like cool, crisp. All right. This is not a weather show. What are you talking about, Schlesinger? It's the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. Sarah writes, can you explain LIRPs, L-I-R-P? LIRPs, what are the pros and cons? When are they a good idea? I've maxed out my 401k contributions. I cannot do a Roth. The idea of a LIRP was floated. Researching it online, I see a lot of conflicting thoughts. Thanks. You know who I go to for these kinds of questions? There's a guy who's like an uber nerd who writes about financial planning strategies and stuff like that. His name is Michael Kitces. Now, some of you who are in the industry may know him. But a lot of the vast majority of like real people don't necessarily know him. He's so smart. And so here is the situation. I go to Kitces, and what I was wondering is like, had he written about this? And the thing is that life insurance is usually a very thorny topic because it essentially has lots of different components to it. All right. So the thing that people look at, like a LIRP, is essentially a life insurance contract wrapped up in a cool marketing gloss. Okay. And so, so LIRP is a life insurance retirement plan. That's what it's called. And what people like you have been told is that this is so smart because you can put as much money as you want in a life insurance policy. There's no limitation. There's no contribution limit, anything like that. And what you can do is later on, you can essentially take money out of your cash value in the form of withdrawing your basis, meaning whatever you put in, you can take out, or you can take a loan against it. And why is this all like being sold to you, really? You know, this is essentially, I guess, to boil it down, this is a way to, yes, invest, but invest at a high cost. And it's a loan where people always say, oh, you're just borrowing it from yourself. But that's not exactly how it works. I mean, it's a longer conversation, but what I can tell you is that money that is taken out of as a loan, whatever's left in, that portion of which has to be held in a cash account. So the real problem that I see with these policies is generally that it sort of overcomplicates what you're trying to do. I mean, even if you make a ton of money, tax rates right now are so low. Like, just invest in an investment account. Why pay for an expensive life insurance policy? For what? I would rather have some money where for all I know, things change. I don't know how what's going to change with life insurance and interest rates, but I would like to have control over my money. I don't like losing liquidity. So, okay, that's what I'm telling you. I would avoid the LIRP. I could see, yes, there are cases for it, but you better work with someone who knows what they're talking about if you're going to explore that. Okay? God, this kills me, right, Mark? I get very worked up. Okay, this is Nina, listens to us in the Twin Cities on WCCO Radio. Dave Lee in the morning. Okay. Here is the question. Nina writes, she's got a company-sponsored profit-sharing plan. As of the end of last year, there's a lot of numbers here, and I don't see any commas to tell me how much money there is. Okay, it's let's call it $245,000. Okay? Fully vested, 26 years at this company. Now, here's the issue. The company has not done well since when the son took over. Contributions to the plan have been slim to none since 2004. And Nina's fear, company may fail to exist within the next couple of years. It's a top-heavy plan. It has been so for a few years. I have an email into the plan administrators to verify how long the plan has been in top-heavy status. There are 4 participants, 2 owners, 2 employees, including me. The remainder of the employees are union. The plan is discretionary, ties my hands in doing anything. Is there any way to get my money out of this plan without quitting? Can I roll my share of the money over and then start employment with the company again as a new employee? Oh, boy. This is a tough one. I'm leaning back in my seat for this one. I think that as long as the profit-sharing plan is actually in place and you are an employee, you cannot do anything. Could you talk to them and say, hey, maybe not say it about the profit-sharing plan, but maybe you say, like, hey, you know what I'd love to do? I'd like to officially retire and come back and work part-time for you or work without benefits or something like that. But I don't think you can do anything with that money unless they were to shut the plan down themselves. And then you'd be able to roll it over. But I don't think you can do an in-service rollover in a plan like this. So I need more information. Are you ready to retire? Do you want to do this? Could you possibly do something else? That I don't know. So hard. These are tough questions, man. You guys are not messing around. These are tough questions. If you've got a life insurance question, if you've got a profit sharing question, if you have an education question, if you're trying to compare jobs, maybe you got some job offers because you know what? It's a pretty good labor market right now, huh? Darn good. Give us a shout. All you have to do is send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. And you can also get to us from the website, jillonmoney.com. There's a contact us button, top right corner. You should bookmark our site. You never know what you'll find there. All right. When we return, more of your questions. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You know, Mark, they can follow us on Twitter, but everyone should know that unless I know you and you're actually asking me a real question on Twitter, Mark is handling the Twitter feed, not me. Do you know why? Because some people are too mean for me. I'm too thin-skinned. Uh-huh. I can do without the anti-Semitic remarks also, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's a cesspool on Twitter. I know, it can be valuable. I was just talking about this with a colleague of mine at CBS, and she says to me, you know, it's so good for breaking news. It really is. I get the power of it. But man, some people, some bots, but also people. The bots I can live with, the people not so much. All right. It's Jill on Money. Let's get to this. This is from Fernanda, who says, I'm feeling a bit lost about what to do with my money. I don't blame you. It can be hard. Okay. She says, I feel like I could be investing more, but I don't have the time or the patience to investigate the stock market, and I'm a bit risk averse. My husband and I split our living expenses, but I make a lot more money than he does. So there's some inequality of what we'd be able to invest in together versus what I can do on my own. My husband wants to flip houses. I've always been interested in real estate. Though I have enough for a down payment, he doesn't. He wants to get loans, build up cash from the profit of flipping and the sales. I have almost a year of income sitting in savings, an IRA, 401k, 529 for the kids, a small American funds account. What else should I be investing in? Hey, Mark, you want to be a house flipper? You want to be a house flipper? Yeah. Fernanda, you can forget about this. Maybe, look, let me start here. If you're telling me you and your husband want to invest in rental real estate because you both have the time, the energy, and discipline to be landlords, that's a separate question. House flipping, like who says you know what the hell you're doing? And by the way, do you not remember what just happened 12 years ago? I feel like I'm in a time warp right now. Is it 2005 right now? Is it 2004, Mark? What year is it? Oh, no, it's not 2004. It's 2019. It's 15 years later. And we're talking about house flipping again? Come on, guys. If you don't have the time or patience to investigate the stock market, I'm not sure you're going to have the time and patience to be a landlord. And it takes a lot of discipline and it takes a lot of research. If you're risk averse and you've got all this other money there, then just build yourself a nice, boring portfolio in that IRA, in that 401k, 529. You can use a target date fund in the 529 for the kids. I'm happy with you having a year of your, you have a year of income, or she writes, I have a year of income. If you don't need all that money, maybe put a little bit more money into the American Funds account, or just buy a couple index funds. How about that? How about just buying like a Vanguard Extended Market Index and a Vanguard Intermediate Term Bond Index? How about that? There is no man or woman behind the curtain, gang. There is no magic panacea to making money. There is no easy way to strike it rich. And for all the people who consistently turn to that as their fallback, I just want to remind you that the best way for you to reach your financial goals is to, 1, start early, and 2, save more. That's it. You don't have to do the heavy lifting by finding the best investment, the best way to make money quickly. You have to find a way to create a lifestyle that will allow you to put money away on an ongoing basis, stick to your game plan, do what you should be doing. And no, this is not, it's not rocket science. Truly, all you need to really be thinking about is, what is my game plan? What's the best way to get there? And if you are risk averse, the idea that you're going to start flipping homes or buying and selling stocks or finding the next crypto craze, high or low. Mark, do you still own some Bitcoin a little bit? If you were to sell it now, would you basically be flat on the investment overall? He'd still be at a loss. What price does Bitcoin have to get to for you to be basically made whole overall? Oh, my God. All right. That's a long way off. But, you know, it was a good lesson, wasn't it? You know, he says it's not over. But it has been instructive, right? Has it been instructive to feel what it looks like to lose that money so quickly? He says it was play money, it didn't matter. So maybe, okay, so if you had play money and you wanted to flip houses, fine. If you had $100,000, you didn't care about whether that 100 went to 50 or whether you were going to drive yourself crazy being a landlord, any of those kinds of things, yeah, sure, go, do it. Make yourself happy. This is a very interesting question. How much time do I have left? Okay, I can't do it. But let me just start by saying, I'll finish it when we come back. This is from Alan, who loves the show. He says, I want to talk to you about a managed partnership portfolio. So when we return, let's talk about Alan's managed partnership portfolio and whether or not that's a good idea for him or for anyone else listening. Okay, it's Jill on Money. And if you'd like, you can go to the website, JillOnMoney.com. You can subscribe to our podcast. It's a separate show. Apple, Stitcher, Radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcast. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we conclude the hour, this is the hour, not the show, right? Thank God. I lose track all the time. Alan was asking about something called a managed partnership portfolio. And he said, I've subscribed to this company's newsletter for a year just to get another take on things. And now I've gotten several, quote, invitations to join what's called a partnership portfolio, $2,900. So this is an organization. It's been around for a while. And he says, I get nervous because he's saying the invitation for one final chance to join makes Alan thinks this is a little questionable. They have had some great returns in the past on stock market returns I've never been invested in. But before I try something out, I'd like to hear your thoughts regarding such an investment. Now, $2,900 would not be a huge amount for me to, quote, spend. My wife and I make $90,000 a year. We're in our early 50s. Seem like they got a bunch of money here, $1.5 million saved. $1 million of which is in retirement, 3 kids through high school, money for college. You know what? $2,900 just to throw the dice? No way. No way. Why should you do that? I mean, if you're thinking about this, he says, I've got a boring life with no expenses. You know what's really makes me feel less bored is finding a tax efficient way to invest. So I'll tell you what, save yourself the trouble. Instead of the $2,900, put that money into the 529 plans. It's like a Roth IRA for education. Make your life easy. The simplicity of this is truly what I'm going for. If you were going to put $2,900 into something like this, here's what I would say to you. You could take $2,900. You can go on vacation. You could have $2,900. You could pick 10 stocks yourself. But I'm not sure why you would pay anyone else to do this. And I think in your case, certainly, in my mind, the best idea for you would be to kind of avoid this. And, this is risky stuff. If you feel like you have, the itch to do something, okay, sure, do something. But do something somewhere else. Do it on your own. You don't need these guys, okay? All right, that is our number one. We have been broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank studios here in New York. And when we return, we are going to talk to you. More of your questions. Retirement. It could be education. It could be taxes. Whatever. Give us a shout. Email us. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2 of the Jill on Money show. We are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. All you have to do is go to policygenius.com and check it out. And anyone who's read my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, knows that I actually am very into insurance. I know I get a bad rap because I like math, and I like that sometimes the law of large numbers can solve huge problems, that I really do like insurance. And I really do find some of these products to be almost miracles. There's very few places in your financial life where you can pay somebody to take risk for you. And you can do that with insurance. Now, not every single insurance policy type is the best for you. But when you are able to actually find the right one, man, it's amazing. It really is. So I think that it is certainly worthwhile to go check out whether you need insurance or not. Okay. So today we've got a really interesting guest. Her name is Zhuo. She is actually, her day job is at Facebook, but she wrote a book called The Making of a Manager. And how did this Stanford grad end up as a leader at Facebook? Stay tuned. Here's our interview with Zhuo. You come out of Stanford. And I presume, what year did you graduate? We're like in 2000-ish?
2006.
Okay. 2006, you come out. What do you know about the Facebook at that time?
So I do a lot because the Facebook came out in 2004 at Stanford. It was a college site at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a new way for students to, connect online and see who was in their dorm, who was in their school, what music those people like to listen to, where they came from, what were their hobbies. They had this awesome feature called The Wall, which basically became the digital equivalent of the whiteboard that you have on your friend's, dorm room. And, you're passing by, you scroll a message, you say, hey, I was here. And now you could do that online. So everyone in college was obsessed with the Facebook.
Okay, so that's good for background. So then when you come out of school, you go to them, or do they recruit at Stanford?
They recruited at Stanford, and I had a great friend who had just joined the Facebook about 6 months ago. And at the time, I was looking for an internship. I was taking a class about entrepreneurship, and one of the, things you're supposed to do when you take this class, it's like a 9-month class, is do an internship with a startup so that you could really experience what it was like. You can put into practice all of the things that we had been learning, case studies about startups that had succeeded or failed. And my friend was like, you should come to the Facebook. It's a startup. I mean, we're still, in the early stages of things. He's like, it's really fun. It's a great group of people. Like, just come check it out. And so he convinced me to sign up the Facebook as my startup. It was a little larger side of startups at the time.
So how many people were there when you start this internship?
It was dozens, enough that could fit into a backyard party.
Okay, but less than 50.
Probably a little more than 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the internship?
The internship is a computer science internship. On my very first day, my mentor, asked me, hey, what kind of, code and software do you like to write? I told her I really like to write the front end. I like the parts where the users interacted with the interface. I'd like to think about what to put in front of them and how, they should go through a particular flow. And she's like, oh, you want to design? I'll sit you down with the designers over here. And prior to then, I didn't know design was an actual profession. I didn't know, that you could make a living out of determining, what it is that people saw and what is their experience on a piece of software. But that's how I got to sitting with the designers.
So how long was the internship?
It was 3 months, but halfway through, I decided to convert full time.
Uh-oh. Big conversion.
I was like, I love this job. I love this group of people. I really believe in the company. And so, I know I've some classes left. I'm just going to finish that on the side and really dedicate myself full time to this job.
So you now are a full-time Facebook employee somewhere in the middle of 2006. And for how long did you work on that design team before you were asked to become a manager?
I worked on the design team for 3 years or so. And at that time, we had been growing. We added a few more designers to the team. And one day, my manager sat me aside and said, hey, our team's growing. I really need someone to help me manage the team. You get along with everyone. How about it?
She's nice. Let her do it. Okay, what was your impression of a management role or a manager's role as you understood it right before you became a manager? If I talked to you a half an hour before that conversation took place, what would you tell me a manager does?
I would have told you what it is I saw my own manager doing, which is running team meetings, hiring people, having one-on-ones with people, talking about, what are you working on? Does it fit into what everyone else is working on?
And what do you think, once you got this job, was your biggest misconception about the role of a manager?
That I really didn't understand how a manager's success is evaluated. I thought that it was all about, hey, are you doing right by your people? Do they like working for you? Do they feel supported by you?
So in your book, I found this really interesting because you kind of started with some of your emotions, and you said about your new role that you had fear, doubt, and you wondered whether you were crazy for feeling this way. And I was wondering, is that a culture where you could share those feelings with anybody?
I didn't share as much of those feelings with people at work. In retrospect, I think that was a mistake. I think if I had told my manager more of how I was feeling, hey, I'm about to go and have this one-on-one. I don't really know if I'm prepared for it. Maybe let's talk about it. Maybe you give me some advice. I felt like I asked her a lot of questions, but I wasn't as direct with her about how I truly felt.
Because it's kind of exposing to go there, right?
Absolutely. And I wanted her to think that she didn't misplace her faith in me by making me, a manager.
Oh, what did we do with that? Julie, darn it, a big mistake. You say that the job of manager is, quote, to get better outcomes from a group of people working together. That's it. You just synthesize it. I thought that what was really interesting is that you boiled down a lot of the tasks of manager into quantifiable objectives and then measuring those objectives and communicating them with the team. And I think that sometimes people get put into the role of management when they're good at the job, but they're not good at being managers. In other words, you're a great participant on your team. You're a great salesperson. You're a great this. I'll make you the manager. Why is that a mistake?
It's a mistake because as a manager, your job isn't to be the best at all of those things. It's helpful maybe because maybe you know the job well, you know how to hire for it, you're someone people look up to. So certainly there are some pros. But at the end of the day, the job of management is not to do the craft of the thing that you were hired for, whether it's sales, design, engineering, so forth. The actual job is to get a group of people together and ensure that they can do their very best work while working together. You know, it's taking the strengths of every individual and ensuring that the output results in something far better than anybody could have done on their own.
We'll get back to our interview with Zhuo in just a second. If you have a spare moment, how about you hop on the JillOnMoney.com website and you can read, you can listen, you can see some old videos, check out some TV appearances. Just check it out overall. Okay? Do it. JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to JillOnMoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. And so much of your financial life is your work life, right? It is your human capital. And how you actually can succeed may be a big driver as to how you'll succeed in reaching your financial goals, how you succeed at work. So we've got a great guest. Her name is Zhuo. She's written a book called The Making of a Manager, What to Do When Everyone Looks to You. And I have found this so often that we really do hear over and over from people who say, I wasn't trained as a manager. I was just a good blank, and then I became a manager. So this is a great book for people who find themselves in that situation. Specifically, it's always intriguing to me how you go from sort of having coworkers who are your buddies, and then you have to then manage those very same people. That seems sort of rife with potential conflicts. So I wanted to ask Julie about that. Here's more of our interview with Zhuo. You talk about the strange role that is being asked of you to manage people who used to be your peers. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. I think a lot of people can relate to how strange that can be. That, you know, all of a sudden I go from being drinking buddies out of the office with a bunch of people that I have a really good time with, and now I'm the manager. What did that feel like for you?
Awkward. Definitely awkward because, you know, again, one day we're just trading tips on design. We're joking about things. And the next day I'm sitting with this person being like, great, let's have a formal one-on-one. And, you know, and the person is looking at me like, you're not a better designer than me, which is true. And you know, clearly you haven't been doing the job, so it's not like you're experienced. So what do you have to really offer me, right? Why would this be a good situation? So
how did you win these people over?
The most important thing that I learned is that I didn't need to feel so awkward about it because, again, I didn't need to be a better designer than this person. That's not what I was asked to do. I just needed to be there to be helpful to this person, right? To understand, you know, what are your aspirations? You know, what do you think you're great at? What do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? What do you think about our team? What's going well? What's not going well? I just needed to start that conversation with the person. And I needed to then take those answers and use that to help that person and help the team. You know, and I felt if I had gone and told myself, hey, you don't have to prove yourself as somehow better in certain aspects or skills than the people on your team. You just have to be there and say, look, I want to be helpful. So tell me how to do that. The first place to start is I want to understand a lot more about you and what you want and what you care about. That would have been such a lower pressure way to, I think, get started on that conversation.
It's hard. And I think it's hard for the team members also because in many ways, some of those team members, they don't want your job, but they're mad that you got it anyway, right? Or not mad, but maybe questioning why you got that anyway. So you do hiring and firing, which is never. I hated that. I owned a company for a while, and I was just like the worst at firing. I always just felt so bad, and I think that I knew in my heart I was doing the right thing. Kind of like when you're breaking up with somebody. It's like it's not easy, but you're sort of saying like, I'm not in love with you anymore, and you certainly don't want to be with someone who's not in love with you, right? And so, how did you handle the firing first, and then we'll talk about your approach to hiring as well.
Firing is hard. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you have to tell someone news that's disappointing to them, that's hard. Whether it's, hey, I had this one exciting job and 6 people wanted it, and not, I'm picking someone else, not you, right? Like giving that kind of feedback is hard because you know that the person is going to be disappointed. But what you said about breaking up really resonates with me, because at the end of the day, it's better to be honest with someone. It's better to let them know if you think this isn't a good fit. Could be that what that person aspires to do and really gets them excited and motivated is not this job. It doesn't mean they don't have the skills for it. It doesn't mean they somehow, couldn't be successful doing something else. It's just, again, it's not a good fit.
So let's talk a little bit about hiring, which, I imagine it's incredibly competitive, especially as the company was growing, to get in the door. What was it that a candidate did that would stand out for you? What made you open your eyes and be like, wow, I need that person? What do you think those qualities were? I mean, presuming that everyone has the right resume, so they're in the box. What makes someone stand out to you?
For me, it was someone who demonstrated that they really, really wanted to learn, and that they were extremely introspective and reflective, and just kind of obsessed with growing as a person. So one of my favorite questions to ask is, I'll say, Jill, tell me about a challenge that you encountered and something that was really hard for you over the last 6 to 12 months. And you describe that to me, you describe the problem. And then I'd say, well, if you could go back in time and do that all over again, what would you have done differently? And the candidates who are like, well, I couldn't have done anything. It was this circumstance, that person, that made it so hard. Then I'm usually like, maybe
Not
that's
so
a red
much.
flag. Yeah.
But it's interesting to ask that question because, as you said, it requires some self-reflection and thoughtfulness about, really what would I have done? So let me ask you that question. Over the last year, what did you find super challenging? Tell us a little bit about what that was.
I found it really challenging to balance having my regular job with doing the book. In retrospect, I think I could have done a much better job of the time management, of, creating boundaries, setting aside, hey, here's my period where I'm going to be focused on this one thing, and then here's that other bucket where I'm going to be focused on that. I think I let it blend in a little bit too much, and that just created a little bit more stress for me all around.
All right, so let's talk about, Facebook being thrust in the news. You don't have to speak for the whole organization. I know that I don't want to put you on the spot because you aren't, the person necessarily making decisions. So I am confronted with this notion, sitting here in the CBS News Broadcast Center, that I am part of a media organization. And it strikes those of us in the world of these organizations that Facebook kind of has a free pass because you feel like, well, you're putting news out there, but you're not responsible for what goes out. So what's the company mantra on that, and what is your view on that?
I would direct you to a lot of the notes that Mark Zuckerberg has written about this topic, about Facebook's responsibility. I think one of the really important points we've tried to make and that we're moving forward with in a lot of our product plans is taking a lot more accountability and responsibility for the things that happen in our platform. We believe it's a way for people to express their voice. And when that happens, a lot of good happens. Tons of people are connected all over the world. You're able to find, your group, your tribe, your people who can, support you in hard times, whether you're a single mother or whether you're someone who's trying to, run a marathon for the first time. But also when you put, people's voices on a platform, bad things happen too. And I think we have to acknowledge both of those. Our job is to amplify the good and to diminish the bad.
What do you think, as a manager, Mark Zuckerberg did wrong in this process? This is so bad that I'm going to, you're his employee, so I don't know if you're going to be able to speak freely. So do you have thoughts on that?
I will just say that one of the things that has been really important for me, really valuable for me, and why I've stayed at Facebook for so long is I really, really believe in the mission. I believe in the mission of the company. I believe in the mission of connecting people. And we have a lot of work to do. We do.
Yeah, I mean, because it feels to a lot of us that, you had all of this, we see the positive, but look, my training is as a trader, which would be as if I approached my job when I first started as, I could make millions of dollars every single year, which is true, but I could also lose millions of dollars. It seemed to me that there was no view on the downside of what was being created. I'm worried that you have a CEO who has no accountability. He can't be fired. He has voting shares. That does not seem like a good management structure to me.
At the end of the day, Facebook is going to live or die in the market based on its value to people. And I think if, over time we don't make progress on a lot of these problems that are extremely important, then I think that over time, people will hold us accountable.
We'll get back to our interview with Julie Zhuo in just a minute. Have you checked out JillOnMoney.com and signed up for our free weekly newsletter? We get a bunch of good stuff to you. Comes at the end of the week. Little kind of in case you were too busy to read during the week. We'll do it for you. Check it out. Free weekly newsletter at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com is our email address. And you can always get to us through the website from JillOnMoney.com. Just click the Contact Us button. We're going to get back to our interview with Julie Zhuo. This is the conclusion of our interview. She works at Facebook. That's her day job. She wrote a book called The Making of a Manager. What to do when everyone looks to you. And it strikes me that when you are a manager in any business these days, it feels like the evolution of technology and of the pacing of change is so incredible. So I wondered how she manages that process, how you evolve and how you adapt. So that's what we get into in this segment with Julie Zhuo. We will come to the end and then get to more of your questions. I think it's going to be an interesting time. I really do. I think that there's a ton of regulation that's going to come not just from the European Union, but now from the U.S., and it's going to be interesting to see how Facebook navigates that. But I wonder how that's going to impact your view of the company as someone who's been there for so long now, more than a decade, how you see your role in an evolving company.
I tell people, especially at a company that's been scaling so rapidly, it has felt like I've had a different job every single year. Mm-hmm. And that's both a great thing and it's both a terrifying thing because it means that every year you're faced with problems of the scale and magnitude that you haven't seen before. And every year, I think the question for me is always, do I believe in the mission? Do I believe in the people that I work with? And if so, how am I going to help myself learn? How am I going to help myself get into that mentality where I can help my team tackle the biggest problems that we have ahead?
So where is a designer likely to get pushback from? So in editorial, right, I can go pitch a story and I can get pushback from the senior executive producers, right? And conversely, they can come to me with a story. This happened yesterday, and I think that story's BS. I don't think we should do this, and here's why. So we have natural but healthy conflict. Where do you reach that point when you're a designer? Who's the other side of the pushback?
When we build any product, what's important for us is looking at a variety of signals to try and help us understand what it is that people want. I think one of the mistakes that designers can make is designing for themselves. It's
right, this is cool.
Taking too much of your own intuition. I go back to one of the earliest mistakes that I still think about pretty much every week when we tried to do this huge redesign. The design team spent 6 months putting together what we thought was the most incredible redesign ever of the Facebook website. And this was a couple of years ago. This was when, we were still dealing with websites rather than mobile apps. And we were convinced that everything about this was better because we were taking your photos, we were making them much more immersive. We were, leaning into the trend that mobile phones and digital photos were getting better. And, previously Facebook was extremely text-based, and now we were getting to this visual and immersive medium. And so we wanted the website to reflect that. So we poured a lot of our heart and soul into this, design. We'd all been using it internally for months and months. And we loved it. We're so excited to put it out in the world. And everyone hated it.
Why did they hate it?
Well, we first got a lot of complaints, and
Well, because obviously, first of all, any change you're going to get complaints.
Yes, and so that was what we thought. We thought, wow, people are so used to the old thing that they haven't adjusted to this new thing, and and we'll just wait. We'll wait a couple weeks, a couple months, and soon we'll have the letters pouring in that tell us how much they love our new design. But then we were able to look at basically everything that measured whether or not this was a better design, right? So, for example, how often did people come, and how often were they, interacting with other their friends and other users? How often were they sharing? How often were they navigating and clicking to other places? Because we thought we'd done a much better job making navigation clear. And so if that's true, then you'll see people exploring other parts of the site more, right? All of that, we can measure in terms of like where they're clicking and all of that. So we take a look at all of these numbers, these metrics that we'd collected. Everything was worse.
Really? Did you revert to the other design immediately?
No, I was deeply unsatisfied with that. I was like, I'm sure there must be a logging bug because, again, our intuition was so strong, right? There must be something. There must be a mistake, like we're not measuring things properly. I was like, until we know what the actual reason was, this is not a satisfying way.
You didn't like the one that was just, we hate this. That was a bad one. Okay.
Well, it was like, if you hate it, why? What about it? Other than that it's different.
Okay.
Because again, we do get used to differences over time. And so we ended up having to deconstruct the entire experiment. We had changed 20 things. We started to tease apart, okay, was it the fact that we made the photos bigger? Was it the fact that we changed navigation? Was it the fact that we, rearranged the order of the buttons?
Right, because there were too many variables to really figure this out.
Right. And so we had to go back and we had to try and isolate each variable and run, that test and go and talk to people and say, was it this thing? Is this the thing that made you, like Facebook less or use Facebook less? You know what we found out?
What?
That ultimately this design worked really, really well for people who had big screens and who had the latest and greatest hardware technology, which again was all of us at the company.
But the vast majority of the millions and billions who were using it, not so much.
Yes, and all the people who were using it, again on a third generation laptop, right? 800 by 600 resolution at the time. Our stories were so big they couldn't even fit on the entirety of the story. Couldn't even fit on the screen.
That's wild.
And
but it's cool that you figured out the why, and then were able to design around that.
Yes. And once we figured out the why, it was much easier to know what to do with it. Because otherwise, we would have just again been experimenting. Would have been throwing things at the wall. Would have been like, is this working? Is this not? But once we figured that out, then we were able to say, you know what, we liked this design. We thought it was better, but the world at large, this is not better for the majority of people out there. And so we need to take that lesson and we need to do something different. And it really taught me a lot about designing for empathy, designing for people who aren't you, the importance of going out there and talking to your customers and talking to, the people who use your products all over the world, and just coming to the point where, you can't build things always by intuition. You can in the beginning. Again, it was a college site. We were building for college people. We had a good sense of what college people wanted, what they would use. But as our user base scaled, it was a lot more important for us to be able to go in there with that sense of beginner's mindset.
Thanks so much to Julie Zhuo. The Making of a Manager is the book, and we are delighted that she was able to spend some time with us. When we return, we're going to get back to you. Focus on you, ladies and gentlemen. Send us your email questions. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. That's me, Jill Schlesinger, on Money, talking about money, all sorts of things. I love this part of the program. In my groove, feeling fine. Mark's not bugging me too much. Miracle. He doesn't bug me. Keeps me on track. It's a perfect partnership. Mark, do you consider me your work wife? Your work spouse? I know. Could be it. I don't know. I don't feel like we have like I don't feel like we have a spousal relationship, more like a sibling relationship. You know what I mean? Okay. I'm the much older sister or the very young aunt. One of those two. Christine writes, I love your podcast. Hey, guys, do you have the podcast? You can get that podcast anywhere you get your favorite podcast. Maybe that's Apple or Stitcher or radio.com or Google Play. Check it out. It's called Jill on Money. Anyway, Christine loves the podcast. And, of course, my segment's on CBS. That's nice. Okay. Christine's 52. She's been working for her company 5.5 years. She's invested the maximum amount in her employee stock purchase plan, 15%. Wow. And she's got $200,000 in company stock. Her 401k contribution is 8%. So she gets an employee match, dollar for dollar. That's a big one, up to $12,000. What are your thoughts on this strategy? Should I consider backing off of the stock purchase and beef up the 401k? 401k value is $495. So let's think about this, gang. $495. So let's round it. She's got $500,000 in the 401k, $200,000 in company stock. I don't know about you guys. I think that's too much in company stock. I really do. You know my deal. I say I think you should have no more than 5, maybe 10% in one company, let alone your own company. Christine goes on to write, I'm starting to panic about retirement. I do have a pension coming to me from my old company, and my husband has a 401k. It's worth about $200,000. He plans to work as long as he possibly can. Me, she writes, not so much. Teenage daughters, $200,000 in their college funds. Yearly income, $340,000 pre-tax. Will we be okay? We need a huge shift in savings. You know, I think you should go run your retirement numbers. That's number one, just to see where you stand. I don't know. I mean, you've got a huge income. I don't know how much money you're going to need in your retirement. I don't know how much of that you're spending. I would back off on the employee stock purchase. I really would. It just does not make sense to have that much money at risk in one company. So that's number one. And then number two, what you should do is it's not a huge shift in savings, but, you know, put more money into the 401k, right? You can put $19,000 a year and you're over 50. So you can put in another $6,000. So $25,000. So I'd love it if both of you could be maxing out your retirement accounts. So again, your retirement and his retirement, $700,000. You have $200 in company stock. That's just too big an allocation. So let's go back to the drawing board, run some retirement numbers. That I think is really important for you. So if you could do that, run the numbers, tell me how you look. That would be fantastic. You can run the numbers probably right at your website for your company, your 401k plan provider. You can go to the choosetosave.org ballpark estimate. You could pay up if you wanted to. If you want to try to, look at some of your various options, there are ways to do that. You can do esplanner.com, paid program where you can get some financial planning software and advice. So those are some ideas, but I would shift it a bit at this point, okay? A lot of company stock questions, right? Here's a question. Oh, this is a follow-up. So this was a question. Let me do this. This is a follow-up question from a woman who is 64 years old and was offered a buyout. And she wanted to know that a financial advisor was going to charge 1.5% to manage her portfolio, and she wanted to know if that was reasonable. And so then she followed up. She's got $180,000 in an account, and she's receiving a monthly distribution of $1,100 from the account, and she's paying 1.5% from that account. And then she's got an annuity, and then she's got a Roth IRA with a little bit of money in it. I don't think she needs this. Mark, what do you think? You want to pay up for 1.5% on this money? 180 grand, 190 grand. It's a lot of money to pay up for, huh? I don't think so. I would be interested, perhaps, in seeing if you could get a cheaper option. And maybe that cheaper option is an online advisor. You could set up the same kind of an account. You could have money drawn out of it, but it would be nice if that 1% a year went to your bottom line instead of the advisor's. Doesn't actually sound like you're getting advice. Just sounds like the guy's invested your money. So let's give that a try. All right? If you've got a financial question, go to JillOnMoney.com. You can click the Contact Us button right there, and you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. All right, we'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we close out the program, let's squeeze in 2 more emails because I want to get these done. Stephanie writes that she is 2 years into retirement from New York State. She was a teacher. She's got a pension. She's got $600 grand in her retirement account, the 403B. Now she writes, my financial planner wants me to move my money to an IRA and a fixed annuity account. I'm very skeptical about annuities. He feels it will assist me in the first 5 years to have guaranteed income. My husband sees no reason to move money. We can allocate sums to conservative to moderate within the 403B. Any guidance would be helpful, Stephanie. Stephanie, the husband's right. Absolutely no reason. You don't have a financial advisor, a financial planner. You know who you have? You have a salesman. And so I would not listen to any advice that person is giving you. And no, I don't think you should move money and any portion of this $600 grand into a fixed annuity, which will lock that money up. You lose your liquidity. No thanks. Your husband is 100% right. If you want to send me the choices within the 403B, feel free to do so. Okay, and last question before we close out. This is from Antoinette, who's retired from the United States Postal Service. She and her husband both invested in the thrift savings plan. Now, of course, taxes have to be paid when you begin withdrawing the money. We're wondering if there is a way for us to move our funds to another plan that has a higher rate of return without paying 30% taxes. Answer, no. If you want to pull money out of a retirement plan and it has not yet been taxed, then you absolutely cannot avoid the taxes. However, if you want to roll over the thrift savings plan, if you're both retired and you want to roll that money over, then you could potentially do it. I don't know why you would. I think the thrift savings plan is great. So I'd love for you to follow up with me and tell me what is it about the thrift savings plan that you really want what about it bothers you? And maybe we could use this plan a little differently if I know more about you. So that's it. And that is the program. And we are so happy and very fortunate that you have kept us dialed in today. We've been broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Go to policygenius.com for more. And if you need more information, you can always go to JillOnMoney.com. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.